Hello, it's 6:13 and it is of course June 13th, Friday the 13th. Some people might get spooked and spooked about that sort of thing, but I'm over it. That date never really had any meaning to me. I know it does for a lot of other people, but it's just superstition, which I think is kind of funny. Anyway, so I'm back here with another video. I have been thinking deeply about my reincarnation and the different lives that I've lived now, and this merges in with the whole bloodline targeting. Now this is a theory. Now I understand one of the reasons why we have so many different denominations in Christianity is because a lot of people debate what certain things mean. Is it literal or is it figurative? Is this like a parable or is it real? Is this some way of describing it in an elaborate way? Were these all accounts, and are these accounts actually occurring within just one specific group of people? Or are people like, maybe whitewashing history or whatever? Okay, I do suspect the whitewashing of history, mainly because, and this is not me creating a racial fight or anything like this, but I do believe that the Nazis felt very threatened by, anyone who had certain strengths, okay, strengths that they were lacking. And this is something that, invoked a lot of anger and tension among like the white nationalist groups. And yes, I talk about this matter of factly. When you really get down to it, this is just, fear. Okay. It's fear. Okay. Because honestly, I'm entirely too nonchalant to even care about racial issues. Seriously. I feel as though that is just so minor, and especially I feel as like I've been around so many different people and none of them had their crap together. So, it doesn't even faze me. But I will say, though, that I believe that in my past lives, I have been several different key characters in the Bible, okay, in some way. Now, I had gotten the intuitive message about Adam and Eve. Perhaps me and my father were the original and the creation of civilization. And by, the modification, the whitewashing, created Adam and Eve, when it could have been, another name for us. I get this intuitive message very strongly, okay? And, instead of like, me wanting to dig deeper in it, like, whip out my special spread that I created to find out more about it, I tend to take my time about these sort of things because I'm at this point where, this information is coming into me and I'm not really feeling as eager to jump on it like I used to. The reason why is because I'm becoming very burned out. Burned out on the whole issue, okay? But yet I have to say that it's significant, okay? And it is magnificent. The reason why I'm saying this is because obviously I'm someone that was these people built had okay, they had a love relationship, hate relationship with me, okay? I have actually encountered some people who were Austrian many years ago, and you know what they did? Like when she first met me, she stood back and she said, "Wow, you are great." Now, I didn't even know what she was talking about at the time because I at the time was working at a place called the Penny Saver. At the time, I had no idea, but I would get a lot of people coming in, and this lady was Austrian, and I do know that there was a lot of Nazi Austrian fusion, and she seemed like she was enchanted with me. Okay, but at the same time, I've encountered people from this Nazi fusion, right, who come near me. And yes, they think I'm great, but they also feel like I'm a source of competition for them when it's not even something that I'm interested in doing. This is just my state of being. You know what I mean? It seriously is my state of being, right? So, going back to the whitewashing of the Bible, okay, I think that there was a lot of manipulation, is, as far as, how biblical characters appeared. Like, for example, I know I've seen movies about like Cleopatra, okay, and I know that Cleopatra had Greek ancestry as well as African, like Egyptian roots, okay, but most people who play her is usually white people, okay, and I don't want to debate this because I know people have debated about Egyptians and who's black, who's white, all racial appropriation, all this stuff. Like I said, because I don't really give crap about people, I'm not going to argue over that because I don't care. But my point is that you know I believe that, okay, I believe that me and my father possibly could have been the original Adam and Eve, okay, and that the Bible is just recordings of certain individuals who may play different parts and roles throughout their life. Now, there's a possibility, and I do not get a strong intuitive message about this, but okay, we all know that I'm Egyptian. My background is Egyptian, but I'm really not even really Egyptian. I perhaps am Egyptians, because a lot of people believe that Egyptians were aliens, okay? And we talk about the alien races, okay? And it would make sense to me. I'm not fazed by it. It is what it is, and I come in peace, by the way. All right, so let's just say that I'm an Egyptian, right? Or I identify more with what the true Egyptians look like, meaning like, dark skin, whatever. All right, so, okay, so then I was, King Solomon. But I also believe that me and my father were the origination, or the, what you would call it, the civilization, the start of civilization. Okay, so then perhaps maybe the Bible is a recording of not just me, but there might be other people on the earth, like, who have a specific bloodline tied into this biblical thing, okay? And could be one of the reasons why we have this fanatical issue of bloodline targeting, okay? And I'm putting this fusion together. But I personally am starting to think, okay, that me and my father were not only Adam and Eve, but I was King Solomon, and possibly Moses, okay? Because Moses does have a, Jewish / Egyptian fusion when you really think about it, okay? We all know the story of Moses. Hopefully you guys know the story of Moses, okay? But yeah, he spent time in Egypt, and he was, he had this upbringing of what was Jewish, but he also had he had an upbringing of what was Egyptian, but he also had a connection to Israel. So my thing is that, this is my interpretation, and this is my view of it, because we understand that cloning has been going on for a very long time. But I also don't think that, all these biblical accounts actually happened as long ago as they claim that they did. Okay. And we have things like repopulation, people scattering, resetting things, whatever. Okay, so this is just my personal belief, and you can see that when I talk about these things, I speak of it in a very matter-of-fact way, because to me, I'm just used to it. This is just normal stuff to me. And maybe it's because I was always kind of weird anyway. But I'm grateful. I'm grateful to understand what goes through my who I am, my DNA. Okay, so I confirmed that yes, I was King Solomon. And I was also the wife of King Tut. And I strongly do believe that the reason why me and my father were so, admired but slashed at, hated at the same time, is because we were the original humans. And that's cool, you know what I mean? But anyway, now how I am in 2025, I found out about me being, adopted and all this other stuff. And I don't really know if I had found all of this out too much or figured it all out when I was CB Berganza. I just know that since I was a kid, I had an interest in things like Nazis. I had an interest in things like religion, people who were brainwashed and all this other stuff. So I believe that CB Berganza probably was at least on it. Like he tried to figure out what was going on, who was behind it. I don't know if when he ended up dying, if he knew exactly what this was, like, at the very heart of it. Like, did he figure out that, this was deeper than just him being, tricked into being a mortician, assistant? Did he understand how deep it really was? I don't know, okay? And of course, maybe there will be some times where I'll just kind of sit back and try to figure all that out. But like I said, there's times where I just feel so burnt out on it. You know what I mean? But I'm very grateful to know, okay? Anyway, the other messages I got is that my rights are being respected. I get this intuitive message earlier this afternoon that while I was just kind of hanging out in my room, of course, right? And as I was hanging out, I know that I had made some phone calls today, right? And it seems like anything that I do, people start conversing about it, okay? They start conversing about it. And so, I had talked about, the issue of addressing the president, as well as the president, not getting involved in church activities, but basically, setting the record straight. It's like this sort of operation was very dark. Bringing kids here, adopting, having people adopted, having, churches view these certain people as like the other, okay? And then, witnessing the ill treatment of these individuals, and they're just kind of standing by like, it's not a big deal. And then also participating in the bullying in some way, okay? Whether, like I said, Rex Laverne, the things that were going on in his warped mind, it could have been fueled by the church because he misunderstood something. Like I said, anybody who's in a position of power, a leader, maybe he heard a pastor say something negative about me. And so just because this man who's standing in front of his congregation said this in front of a bunch of people, in his mind, Rex Laverne's mind, he's like, dang, that's true. I got to act on that. You know what I mean? And I just got the intuitive message that maybe it had something to do with weed. Okay. I've heard some Christians say some pretty silly things before. Okay. And it's really because they don't understand. They don't understand, okay? Like, some people think that weed is a natural herb, okay? It grows from the ground, and I do believe that weed had something to do with Rex Laverne's attacking me, okay? And like I said, there's certain things that people do that I don't particularly agree with, okay? But I would never dare step in their way of living their life. Just like there's certain things that people do that I wouldn't do. Okay, and I can't really name anything off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's plenty, right? But I understand they have the rights to their preferences, especially if they understand that it's a law. Let me tell you something. If something is a law, it really should not be debatable. Okay, it means that, there's something there to protect a person from being able to do it. Okay, it is something that it resolves an issue. It resolves an issue, meaning like, when alcohol became legal, right? When it became legal, it was, yeah, some people are going to be controversial about it because they either choose to drink it or they don't, okay? Or you either choose to make it or you don't, right? Some people partook of alcohol and some people didn't. And the issue is that do we have a justification for, harming a certain person because they choose to partake in alcohol, okay? The reason why it's a law is because it says, yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can do that. It's okay, okay? And nobody has the right to badger you, meaning like, you may personally roll your eyes about the issue. You may not like it. You may disagree on it, but it should not be used as a basis to be able to conduct business, to live my life, or whatever. This is what laws are. Laws protect people, okay? So enough people smoke marijuana to where it would become legal, okay? I will tell you, back in the 90s, there was a time where, and I am not a military person, believe me, it's not because I don't respect the idea of protecting our country, okay? We all know that Maria is very flashy, like she likes her clothes, right? But somebody approached me one time, back in the 90s when I was working at Edwards Air Force Base, and they were talking about, maybe having me work in the military, right? And I remember like sitting there thinking about that, and he started asking me interview questions about the military. And I was like, okay. And he said, have you ever tried any drug with the exception of marijuana? And I said, why is marijuana the exception? He said, so many people smoke it that we just have to, just accept the fact that people smoke it and we'll end up taking them anyway. Okay, because it was already, pretty much something that most people partook of. Okay, and maybe church people didn't. Okay, but it was always very widespread, the use of it, okay? And so people just figure, what, we might as well go ahead and do it. There is a lot of positive benefits about marijuana, and I do think that if I was somebody who did own a dispensary, I would make it a little bit more upscale, okay? Because like I said, it does have that kind of connotation to it. But then again, so are people who drink alcohol. Like, there's some people who drink alcohol every single day, okay? And they're always seen with their beer. The minute they get home, they're drinking their beer, right? And that's their choice, okay? To me, it's, they have the right to do that. As long as they don't get behind the wheel. Same thing with marijuana. You should not be smoking behind the wheel. You shouldn't be doing anything. If somebody comes over to your house and they're partaking of that, if you could invite them to stay the night or something to prevent them from going out and drinking and driving, or the same sort of thing, right? As long as you're responsible with it, then and I also would say that if you do partake of things like that, then it should be out of the reach of children, okay? But yes, marijuana is legal. Okay. And, I understand that there were people talking about, exchanging this information about me sending, requests for assistance in this fundraiser. Anything that I do seems to like generate a lot of conversation. And I want to say that, I'm somebody, like I said, I believe in self sufficiency. This is another thing that puts me against most people. I don't like waiting on other people. And this is the reason why I hated being in the network. And I did get into his message as I was sitting on my bed earlier that the most of the people who were assisting Rex Laverne or whatever on the sidelines, they're either dead or they're docile, meaning like, the people are, there's some people still here, who are upset that I am still living my life the way that I'm living, meaning they are angry because, I recognize what was going on. My rights are being respected. I being, acknowledged as I'm not going to be punished because I'm not religious or whatever. Okay. There are some people who honestly, even though to me, my situation, and I'm a very prideful person, but looking on the outside looking in, I deserve sympathy. Okay. Because, I was a product of something very wicked. I went through horrible things. Okay. I dealt with just absolutely, the whole thing to me is very, very dark. Okay. But there are certain people who were used to bullying me. There were certain people who were used to bullying me. Okay. And there are certain people who were, addicted to, trying to, uh, how they say, like, people, narcissistic people, they need supply. Okay. And by abusing other people, this is how they get their supply. They like terrorizing people. They like, keeping people down. They like belittling people because they feel so lowly about themselves. Okay. But the problem is, like I said, whether I was a burden baby or not, okay, to me, I can't understand how somebody can justify mistreating someone, just because. Like, if I heard somebody tell me that this kid was, adopted from some weird place, then, they got abandoned, they got set up with a family that was only using them, financially exploiting them, right? The only reason why this family had anything is because of them, but yet they turn around and treat this person like dirt. You know what I would do? That would be very sad. Okay, that's me. Okay, because I have compassion and I understand what warrants that. Okay, but there are still people who feel they're very, very disturbed. Okay, they're very disturbed. Okay, but see, this is why they should have never gotten involved with that in the first place. So I do understand Rex Laverne is gone. Okay, so right now I'm trying to get myself together, and I understand that there were people talking about, my email messages and following up with a phone call, and I believe that I have to be proactive in these sort of things. Like I say, I understand how emails get ignored. And I also understand that, there might be some people who just still want to challenge me and may not support my fundraiser. Okay. Perhaps this is the case, but I have to keep trying. See, I don't have anyone. And see, this is the issue of, and some people want to say, oh, put it on my kid. You know what? I don't ever want to be a burden to anyone. I don't want to be a burden to anyone. Okay, and that's my right, and this is what I believe. Okay, I don't ever want to sit here and be like, oh, yeah, and this is one of the reasons why, for my fundraiser, I'm not just asking people for money. You know what I mean? Because I understand, you that's just not how society works. Okay, I don't ever sit here and do anything that's going to build resentment. I don't ever want anybody to ever say she's blameworthy or she did this or she did. No, I stay out of my business. I mind my own business and I earn my money. Okay, so this is my issue. It's like, okay, I created a video, because I didn't get the rightful compensation that I deserved through the court system because there was that heavy brainwashing going on. And, at the time I got this intuitive message, at the time, the lawyers were convinced that Rex Laverne was right. And they were convinced because I was what they called, somebody who took care of themselves or whatever. And where were they thinking this? They were thinking this based on religion. See, this is what I'm saying. It's like, okay, when it comes to law, you have to use logic, and you have to be able to separate what is secular and what is religious. If I was a lot of people, I remember when I was in high school, I remember this one dude, he was like in his 30s. He said, you know what you should do when you get older? You should be a lawyer. You should be a lawyer is what you should do. And I'm like, I can't see myself doing that. But I saw the importance of understanding what the law is. Okay. And I understood that I understood what happened was a very corrupt thing. Okay. And this is the reason why, I feel it's like it's a shameful thing that lawyers did what they did in this community and other places, okay, because of their church affiliations. And the churches should have known better to approach, these particular professions. And, I don't know if it was all Rex Laverne's thing, or, did Rex Laverne get this in his mind and then it went into the churches, or did the churches, I know the churches inspired them because this is a part of the church program to poison the minds of the families of the burden babies. But like who, when it came to me at Murray Family Farms place, I don't know exactly who did what. I really don't. Okay. Do you like my glasses? Got gummy bears on it. It's really cute. I don't know where I got this. I think I might have got it at the Dollar General, but it is so cute. Anyway. So, and I didn't get it recently because I understand people are like, what is she spending her money on? None of your damn business. Okay, and I feel like sometimes I have to stand up for myself because, the thing about human nature is that people really do not have limits, okay? And this is why we have laws. Or this is one of the reasons why we also have things like social etiquette. Because when people, step over a certain boundary that's natural, like you can tell when people are rude, like or when they're in your space or something, it's like, whoa. And some people have never learned those sort of social skills because, like I said, there's a lot of neglect that goes on, and just people just it just repeats generation after generation. So this is one of the reasons why people like Rex Laverne got it in his head that marijuana was bad, and he needed to teach me. What did I talk about? Vigilantes who think it's their responsibility to whip people upside the head with discipline. I don't need anyone disciplining me, even though I understand, like when people talk about weed smokers, right? The first thing that conjures up in their mind is, oh, she gets stoned, she just sits around, she's lazy all the time. No, I am a very highly driven individual. Highly driven. I mean, like most of my time, I'm spending time doing research or doing something along those lines. I am a very, very driven person. This is one of the reasons why, I care about my fundraiser. I care about my writings. I care about, my special projects. This is what fuels me. This is what keeps me grounded. Okay, very little keeps me grounded on the earth. Like, I hate to say it, but like when I look at mankind, when I think it does trigger me with feelings of negativity. I do not really enjoy the presence of people because I look at people as kind of evil. Now, let me explain something. Also, the biblical character that came to my mind earlier was Noah. Now, I said, like, I don't know for sure, but who's to say I wasn't Noah? When I look at myself, okay, when I think about my principles, okay, when I look at certain things that most people normalize, I wouldn't even think about doing, okay? And this seems like, the character of Noah. You know what I mean? So maybe what if the Bible, and I understand that Solomon contributed to the Bible writings, but what if the Bible books, right, are all contributions on similar, by similar writers based on the trajectory of my life? Wouldn't that be a trip? Wouldn't that be a trip? Anyway, but yeah, what I was saying is that, yeah, no, I'm a unique person. And it's funny because I understand this about myself, but I also am comfortable with who I am. I'm totally comfortable with who I am. And I think this is something that Rex Laverne and a lot of people who come from ignorant backgrounds, they think that, I would say the old school, okay, they think that certain techniques or certain techniques needs to be, initiated and enacted on certain individuals because they believe that, we need to correct her path. We need to do this and make everybody the same. And see, that is a very dangerous way of thinking, okay? And this is why a lot of people end up committing suicide. This is one of the reasons why, a lot of autistic kids get, ignored and all this other stuff because they are different. I'm not autistic, mind you, but this is just an example, okay? I understand when people have genius level, they don't really relate to other people, okay? I am a unique individual, but that does not mean that I should be isolated. Like, I don't sit there and think that I should be like the center of attention either, but like, when I was at workplaces, sometimes I would be off to the side and it was like instructed, don't talk to her. And the reason why they wouldn't want me to talk to me is because of the way that I appeared. Okay. And the thing is that, I'm proud of who I am. I am very proud of who I am. And it's not about being arrogant. It's about me feeling confident. Like, I enjoy wearing my nice clothes. This is who I am. This is what I stand for. Okay. And, I don't think Rex Laverne understood this because he comes from this particular religion. And see, he wanted to prevent me from living my life, and he blocked me. Meaning, what if there were people who had open minds where I could have gone? But see, I had like rumor mills going on about me and all this other stuff because of the Nazi operation. It was just an absolute nightmare. I did get a message that people support my friendship with Elon. Okay. And I think that's wonderful. I really do. That's wonderful. I don't know the whole backstory of what happened. I just know that there's some sort of connection with Elon and what happened to me. And there's some sort of like fusion, because of Rex Laverne, and then him pulling strings behind, things behind the scenes. And then it relates to my my adoptive as well as my blood relation family, and the DEI thing, and it had all of this stuff. Okay, all of it. It's all mixed in together. Okay, but the specific details, it's really unclear to me. Like, I understand that Rex Laverne played a huge part of it because of the apparition. I'm trying to figure out. How long did Rex Laverne know who I was? How long? I had mentioned a few weeks ago, or like a week ago, that, I had noticed there was a Laverne cemetery. Now, I know that I worked in the cemetery business as C.B. Berganza. This is so crazy. It almost seems so surreal. It seems surreal. Like, and this is why, I kind of like laugh and kind of giggle when I talk about this, because it's like, I am a sane individual, and I understand that talking about past lives so openly, people have always thought, or tried to label people crazy with this sort of stuff. I know I'm 100% sane. I understand I'm 100% sane, but I also have always, throughout my entire life, been open to the possibility of past lives. And I started doing past life research, writing it down and recording it since 2017. Okay. Before that, I would just read about it and stuff like that. But I started doing like past life studies, and then also doing readings and stuff like that. And I just recently resumed that in 2023, when I started finding out that I was C.B. Berganza, which blew my mind. So, yeah, I would say that my life has been very difficult, because of the cloning program. And I think what it is like, these white people, these people who were behind, and I'm not trying to like bag on the white race. This is just what happened. Okay. I'm not trying to I'm just saying what happened. Okay. Cause I got the feeling that when it came to white people like Rex Laverne, he was the kind of person that thought every time you stood up for yourself, you were doing it to be defiant, and that, he needed to prove you wrong. You know what I mean? And this is not my intention. It's just like, this guy's obstructing me. Perhaps he doesn't understand, that his, outright racist behavior is illegal. And yes, I have the right to live my life. And I didn't appreciate him, manipulating things behind the scenes and exploiting me in the manner that he did. And I understand that there was a lot of people who thought that he was justified just because, I didn't have any solid roots, meaning like, I didn't have a close family relationship. My family seemed to be condoning it, both sides, because they were exploiting me. Okay. And so, all these people felt justified in doing what they're doing. No, it is not. Whether I was a clone or not. Okay, like I said, I'm over the age of 18, and what these people did was shameful. Absolutely shameful. So I kept thinking, okay, what's holding me back? I need to get this whole thing moving, And unfortunately, I can send emails. I am only one person. I can send emails out, and I can follow up with phone calls. But at the same time, that's a lot of work for one person to do, okay? And I'm trying, the hardest I can to raise funds, okay? I did not have the best time here in Bakersfield, so I would appreciate it if people would assist me in my fundraiser, because I want to get on with the rest of my life. All I wanted to do when I was left of Murray Family Farms. The only thing I wanted to do after I left Murray Family Farms was get away from what was causing me these problems, okay? And what was causing me the problems was, of course, I didn't know at the time, but Rex Laverne and this long history of this cloning thing, the people that my dad worked with, kids at school, along with Rex. Now, I got the feeling today that, I had mentioned a lot of people in that group are dead, okay? They're dead. And there are still a few people who are kind of like, oh, but they are also acknowledging the fact that my rights are respected. You know what I mean? And what bothers me, like I said, is the fact that I always feel like when this is my true feeling. When I'm around people, I feel terrified because I feel as though the average person is a low down criminal. And they don't know that they are. Seriously, that's how I feel around people. I feel like they are criminal. Their motives are criminal. The only thing that they do is think criminal. You know what I mean? Or they don't know any better, which I think is, it is shameful. So anyway, yeah, I did get the intuitive message that the churches are going to be removing me from data banks or however that works. I just know that churches play a huge role in my targeting, okay? And some of these people might have done it because they felt as though it was the right thing to do, but no, it's not, okay? Like I said, maybe because I would say King Solomon was a very interesting figure, okay? And the more I think about it, this person who had a completely different origins was, like, for example, him in the house of David, okay? People expected him to be a certain way because they had, threw him in this situation. He's around different people and he's got a different form of DNA. And a lot of times, there was tension about what Solomon did. One of Solomon's wives did something that was looked upon, in disfavorably. Mind you, that's the wife who did it, okay? But a lot of people were upset because King Solomon, kind of allowed that to happen, right? But still, that was still the responsibility of what she did. At the same time, though, King Solomon really did not want to conform to what was around him naturally. Okay, and it seems like it happened then. Okay, and then it also seems like, if I was indeed Noah, I was, if I was Noah, okay. If I was Noah, then it would make sense because Noah doesn't seem like he had the same sort of standards and principles as other people. You know what I mean? So then they created this virgin baby, right? Came back and cloned me again. So I think what they were fascinated with is, like, white people have been following me through my different, when I say white people, I'm referring to the Nazi groups, okay? Operation Paperclip, the Joseph Mengele, and all these people, okay? I think that they have been interested in me because, they followed me around, and then they were upset because I have always, in all of my lives, okay, especially King Solomon was able to amass large amounts of wealth, okay? And the reason why they thought that King Solomon was amassing large amounts of wealth because he was using magic to do it. No, okay? I actually have a mind that is very creative, okay? And it has nothing to do with magic. These ideas literally just pop into my head. They just literally I need to act on it. This is how my brain works, okay? Because King Solomon had a higher level intellect than the people around him. And he also had, what do you call it, mystical abilities. King Solomon is I should say, a magical person. Now, do I have the ability to fly like I did in the past? I don't, okay? I don't have those abilities, okay? But, it seems as though King Solomon was written and spoken of, with awe and admiration, okay? I know that in the Quran it talks about King Solomon having a carpet, okay, that I believe either the Queen of Sheba gave it to him or something like that, but he was able to fly in it. So, okay, this is very strange, okay, but at the same time, King Solomon was an Egyptian, I believe, and I believe that he was an alien, you know what I mean? So anyway, it's cool. I mean, I totally love my background. I think it's awesome. And I understand that people tried to make me feel bad about it. This is one of the reasons why they would isolate me at work and bully me and everything. But still, at the end of the day, people can say what they want to say about me, but I still would never want to be a Christian. Okay, and I know the hate campaign was deep. It was very deep. Okay, but throughout it all, though, I do believe that the Bible shows a lot of respect for who I was. Okay, if I was Jesus Christ in the past life, okay, which nothing would surprise me. Nothing would surprise me. Then this, it's the same repeated pattern, okay? When it comes to people who have high morals, high standards, just like, they persecuted Jesus to the point of death, right? People want to eat these sort of people alive, okay? And really, they should not have, okay? And so you see people who talk about Jesus and all this other stuff, but if Jesus was on earth, and possibly I am Jesus, okay? Possibly, meaning like the Messiah, okay? What did the Messiah get from this group of people that were like, completely abusing me? It's just the utter disrespect. They are not able to appreciate what is sacred. Most people nowadays have no concept of what is sacred. But see, I do. I do. Okay. This is one of the reasons why when I was younger, I wanted to grow. I was thinking maybe I should be a nun because I can just kind of hang out and be around what's holy all day long, because I would prefer to do that. This is my world. This is my realm. You know what I mean? So, and that's how I am. And this is what, fuels me. And when I say that my interest is associated with my spirituality, yeah, definitely. It is. I see a correlation between it. Because, I think about things like fabric. I'm looking at the clothes. I'm looking at the color. I'm looking at the textures, the textiles, the prints on them. When I think about, art, painting, am I daydreaming? Am I trying to create a reality? What is everything I do seems to revolve around something supernatural. You know what I mean? And that's how I am. Okay. And so then they wanted to bring me back to try to convert me, hopefully that I would change my ways. That wasn't necessary. I was a spirit just like drifting off like everyone else. You know what I mean? I didn't need to be brought back to like, So the reason why I must have been brought back was to bring the New World Order. You know what I mean? Which I think, I think a lot of people have throughout the years feared it because it seemed very sinister, because people would talk about it like like it was something horrible, you know what I mean? But really what it is just bringing order, bringing order, you know what I mean? Bringing order to hopefully the world, you know what I mean? But right here, I'm just trying to start in California with my special project, and what I'm hoping is that it'll catch on. Like, I'm going to submit this to the state, and hopefully, it will be something that will be put into use, and then other states will follow. Maybe, Arizona, New Mexico will be like, oh, I want to see. And I would be willing to give copies of the Moral Reset. Actually, it is coming with the transcript, okay? So that means that if another state wants to just kind of follow my model and just modify it with their own state, that's great. Or maybe if they don't have the same law that is beneficial here in California, then they might want to consider initiating something similar to what's going on here in California. You know what I'm talking about. It's just that, I'm hoping that this will spread, okay? I would do all 50 states, the Commonwealth, and, whatever, but I'm only one person. Okay, I am only one person, but that the transcripts could be easily converted, just by looking at them, somebody studying them, changing the California law out, and inserting another law. Okay, and then having that circulate through their states, and then of course it would be followed up by statistical information, like how many crimes have been committed since the Moral Reset, how many victims of human trafficking have been assisted since this issue has been released. And it's taken me some time, I'm going to tell you. It's taking me some time, but see, I'm very interested in my work, okay? And so I was upset, like, when I tried to get lawyers on to my project. Like, I know that when I think it was a little before I was I started working over at the Rex Laverne's place, okay? And before I started working there, I had contacted some lawyers about, talking about, lucrative type ideas, that I was really hoping that I could work with like a lawyer's office to where we can do the psychological lawyer type law thing with somebody, like a collaboration, and of course I was blacklisted. I wasn't supposed to be spoken to. I was supposed to be treated like I was garbage. I was nothing. Yes, they actually treated me like this. And you know what? It's crazy because people are evil is basically what I'm saying. People are evil, and some people are evil by default just by the fact that they're ignorant. Okay, and I'm aware of it. Like, and I would say, yes, I'm more of a person who dislikes people more. I would never harm anybody, but I am disgusted by how people behave. I'm disgusted at their fakeness. I am, because they have no concept of really God. Okay, and when they talked about Jesus when I was growing up, I now understand that their affiliation with their church, the reason why they liked it so much, especially like my sister, is because the church was criminal. Like, I'm wondering, am I the only person that they exploited through these sort of covert means? I don't believe that I am. Okay, who's to say, like, Tanya may have had like vendettas against certain people? I remember my sister Lisa had this issue with this very pretty girl. I forgot what her name was. Okay, but she was very, very pretty. I think she was like, she might have been biracial. Okay, and my sister invited her to the birthday party. Okay, her kid's birthday party. And do I think that she probably did stuff? Because I remember her talking about, this lady, she was getting demoted from her position, right? Something about her being demoted. And the reason why she was being demoted is because, she was a nice looking woman. And I thought, okay, that is not a reason to demote someone. People's jealousy. And see, this is why I'm talking about the workplace is not a natural environment. It is not a natural environment. I have done my studies on this. See, the thing is, people have insecurities. This whole, people, like, the community has insecurities, the country has insecurities. And do you honestly think that most people are emotionally strong enough to deal with strong people? Most people aren't. They crumble. They crumble because it's like, they look at certain people and then they feel insecure. And so they want to project it. This woman had no reason to. Let me tell you something. When you see somebody who takes care of themselves, what you're looking at is a true leader. What you're looking at is a true leader, somebody who has self-control, somebody who knows how to take care of themselves, somebody who is in good health, somebody who stands tall because they have the ability to do this, okay, to live a good quality life. I am a true leader. And just like that lady, I don't know how good her management was, and I will tell you the majority of people who claim to be good managers really aren't, okay? And I'm not trying to say this to be mean. I experienced it and I seen it firsthand, okay? Now hopefully she had a decent set of skills to where, her elimination from her position was justified, okay? But a lot of people who go to the gym, people who work out. Now, I don't do any of those things, okay? But if I did, I would have every right to. What people want to use this as an excuse is because they hate themselves. We live in a world of self-haters, okay? I had mentioned back in 2000, I think it was around Murray Family Farms time, okay? When, what was her name? She was a British lady. Samantha Brick, okay? Yeah, okay. Samantha Brick. Samantha Brick, she was like in her 40s at the time. There was this huge blow up about something that she said, something about the difficulties of being attractive or something along those lines, okay? She had said that. And a lot of people attacked her. They just jumped on her. They wanted to, like, and she was not saying this in a arrogant way at all. Okay. She was basically saying that, exactly what I was experiencing. Okay. A lot of people feel insecure about themselves and they want to attack you. And the sad part is they feel as though they are justified. No, you are not justified to attack somebody. You are not justified to sit here and blacklist somebody. Just like I am not, justified in bullying people who have things that are better than me, when I know I deserve it. Like, if you think about what my intellectual abilities, okay, if I was living in a world where people were moral, where I wasn't having to deal with snakes and sharks and stuff like that, yes, I would probably, I would be the kind of person who would be able to live in a mansion. Okay, that's the reality of it. But I live in a very corrupt world. Still, okay, I do not feel any desire to go over to like other sides of town where people are living large and living in nice houses to desecrate their property, to damage their property, to, gossip about it. It does not come into my heart to do that. I just try to make do with what I have. Okay, so once again, we're talking about the heart condition and what kind of morals I have versus the majority, which is one of the reasons why I keep thinking perhaps maybe I was Noah. Perhaps I was. Anyway, what else am I going to talk about? So yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm working on getting my life back together, and I need to stay active. You know what I mean? I need to stay active, and I'm hoping that I will find employment, or I'm willing to go into work myself. I'm keeping my options open. Why? Because um, you know, I need to make a living. Okay, I need to make a living, and I understand how I feel about the work sector. Okay, I do feel as though it's hard to take it seriously, okay? Because if I had the ability to have my own business, okay, I would be focused on business, and I would be a standalone business, meaning I wouldn't piggyback. I would not need to sit here and sell out or merge with corporations or anything like that. I would be a standalone, make my money business, okay? This is what I would want to set up for myself, okay? That would be my goal, okay? But the thing is, it's like I know I've dealt with people standing in my way, and then trying to use justification, or greedy, money hungry leeches that want to sit here and siphon my energy and whatever, okay? So I deal with that sort of stuff. But the thing is, at least if I had my own business, I would stand on business. I feel as though a lot of the companies that I've worked for, they're engaged in things like human trafficking, the gossip, the drama. And it's like, to me, I'm somebody who would be interested in, perfecting my product and my service so that I can create more income. And see, this is one of the reasons why King Solomon was known to be a very wealthy man, because I stand on business. Okay, so most people, their job is a joke to them, or they're unprofessional or whatever. This is not me putting people down. It's the truth, and a lot of it has to do with, like I said, negligence, and the fact that we have a piss poor education system. Piss poor education system. Okay, which is one of the reasons why me, little old me, is wanting to tackle this project. And like I said, this project is taking a little bit of time. And let me tell you what else is going on with my project. Okay, right now I am working on my project alongside of my newsletter, at the same time trying to reach out to people and help, try to get funds for my fundraiser. All because, okay, of some crooked individuals. Okay, and then they wanted to make up my life and then try to hurt my son's life on top of it. Okay, I don't like people because they interfere with others. That's why. Okay, people don't know boundaries, and what to, they don't understand that they are not entitled to what other people have. They're not entitled to what other people do, and they always want to form committees and be vigilantes, or try to give themselves more self-importance than they actually have. Now, I understand people, at the root of everything, people do want to feel good about themselves. They want to like themselves, okay? And they struggle to do this. And it's very difficult to do when we live in this old system, how things were, And what I'm saying is, like, shitty jobs, crappy managers, no true work-life balance. I have to tell you, and this is no disrespect to the churches, but, the whole kingdom spouse thing, when I think about it, I cringe, okay? I more than cringe, okay? I'm absolutely horrified because, I look at my sister's kingdom spouses, a lot of people who are put in vulnerable positions to where they have to breed children. And don't get me wrong, okay? Like I said, I understand, like, for example, white people, they feel like they want to add more to their, more quality people into their stock. Okay, I get it. Okay, but the thing is, like I said, you can live, but what good is living if you're not living a good quality life? So, if I was somebody who was into, and I had a normal life, and I didn't have to worry about weird perps or anything like that, and I was somebody who was interested in marriage, right? I would be looking for a marriage partner for myself, okay? I would not be happy with people who are trying to force other people onto me. And I also would have standards. I would want to have compatibility with that person, meaning to enjoy the same things and have, see, a lot of times they'll send you people, like, for example, I believe that this whole Elon Musk thing, I don't know everything about it. And I've only really started paying attention to Elon Musk in the last few months. Okay, I knew he was, and I thought he was cute and everything, but I never like really paid attention to him until, like, I would say February, okay, or January or February, okay. But see, like, for example, if a person is not the same religion as you are, they think that it's a good idea to try to groom you for that religion. And the thing is, I don't want to be a part of a religion. See, a lot of times women, and this is no offense, okay, but like I said, the root of women being prevented from showing themselves the proper love, that, or wearing makeup or wearing nice clothes, is because this comes from the whole white ideology of, a man having a woman and looking at her as a possession. This is the truth, okay? This is the truth, okay? And then also their main goal is to continually process and generate more white offspring. That's fine, okay? And I said, that's great, okay? But if I was somebody within that group of people, I would want to, of course, produce more offspring, but they should be living in loving homes. They should be building it on relationships. And I understand people are so financially strapped. Everything, like the church was like forcing you into, like, kingdom spouse marriages, tying your finances into it. Like, a woman can't get away from her husband if he's beating her or whatever, because he has control over her employment. Meanwhile, she's producing children. Oh, they don't have enough money. They're not getting by. They can always get one of those burn babies, right? And then they could slave that poor kid out. I mean, when I look at how people have lived their lives because of these people putting themselves in charge, they have done a destructive job. You know what I mean? So this is one of the reasons why I feel as though I'm going to be talking more about behavior and this sort of stuff, because I think people's lives should improve for the better, not for the worse. And I don't believe the white agenda for the white nationalist type family unit was really, I don't think it was really thought out. I really don't think it was thought out, okay? Because if it was, it would have made a little bit more sense than that, okay? And this is my personal opinion. As an unbiased person, somebody who has observed and experienced this sort of operation and all this sort of stuff, it was an absolute nightmare. What else do I want to talk about? My father's aberration is still being seen on camera, which I think is cool. Like I said, I have not seen it. I do have an appointment with the EDD on Monday, okay, which I hate talking to these people, but I'm going to have to get rid of it. Deal with it. I wanted to talk about, the issue of me trying to generate funds to move. Like I said, it's important that I get my way back to Lancaster. I don't really see myself being very happy in Bakersfield. So it's better for me to try. I did get the intuitive message that this has a lot to do with me being better than everyone in the school system. Yes, I am somebody who is, like I said, I'm taking on the challenge of recreating the school curriculum. I want to rechange everything. So yes, I do have, okay, I'm a genius. I am, okay. And I have always known it, but I don't sit here and brag about it. And people do get this feeling that Maria is very humble. Yeah, because you know what? Nothing impresses me anymore. It's like I feel seriously burnt out. Nothing, I could be Noah, I could be Moses. The whole Bible could be written around me. And I'm just like, Isn't that crazy? It's crazy because I guess it has a lot to do with my level of intellect. That's what it is. Anyway, what else do I want to talk about? Yeah, so that's what I'm up to doing. I'm hoping, I want to talk about social media really quick because, see, the disadvantages that I have because I was associated unwillingly to Rex Laverne is the use of social media. Now, I get the intuitive message that he messed with a lot of people who he didn't like, a lot of clone type people who he didn't like. He resented the fact of our background. He was probably on the side of the Nazis who felt, like they wanted to attack bloodlines, okay? Like I said, like the lady who that movie Monster was about, Eileen Wardrobe, okay? Wardrobe or whatever her name is. Okay, she was a white woman, okay? But she was of a particular stock that they just didn't like, so they bullied her to death. A lot of it was based on religion. She was most likely a burden baby, okay? So it was her bloodline, and it was her way that she lived throughout her past lives that, this is in you. It's your DNA. Okay, and so you have these races of people who think, hey, we can change that, we can modify that, we'll just do it for fun, it's a challenge to do this. Well, it's wrong to do that. Okay, this is what they are. Just like, I know, to me, the whole issue of homosexuality it used to be controversial, okay? But for years and years and years and years, people bashed homosexuals. Now, when it comes to clones, I don't really know what to say because I understand there was a lot of manipulation, and I talked about male boobs, and I talked about, women with Adam's apples and weird stuff like that. Okay, some of that was genetically designed to basically say, screw you to this particular bloodline. This is the kind of stuff that was going on. This is one of the reasons why they liked having control over other people. Okay, bringing them back and then trying to, bully them in some other way or make them submissive. They may have been kings and queens in one life that lived in luxury and had, very eloquent type habits, behaviors, okay? And they thought, and many years ago in a past life, they may have felt threatened by that. Like, why are you acting this way? Why do you think you need to be this way? Or, that who do you think you are type stuff. It's just who they are. So they looked at it as like, well, you're not like us, so we're going to come back. We're going to punish you. You know what I mean? Or challenge you the next life or have some sort of resentment towards you. To me, it's like, look, I hope you guys understand it's not how you do things. It has nothing to do with rebellion. It's who we are. DNA is very important to think about, okay? Our DNA plays an integral part in how we behave, how we think, how we speak, how we live. I mean, everything, okay? So no, it's not something that was a wise thing to do to try to take that out of a person, okay? Anyway, what else do I want to talk about? I am working on my third quarter newsletter, as well as my project that I want to submit to the state and look for, try to get funds and look for work at the same time. Okay. So I'm a busy woman, really, when you think about it. I'm a very busy woman, but, I get angry because, of the rumor campaign, and I never feel really at peace with people. I don't know what's going to happen when it comes to my work issue. Okay. I do get the intuitive message, like I said, that some people are looking for work for me and an apartment. Okay. But like I said, I got to get there. And I'm not going to be working on my fundraising campaign this weekend because I need to work on my newsletter and I need to also work on my project that I choose to submit to the state. Chances are I will not be done with that. I'm not even going to tell you when I'm going to be done with that. You know why? Because I realize human behavior and little occurrences, these little things, these little intricate things that people do, it's too much, okay? And I'm trying to cover as much as I possibly can, but I am doing, I'm a very busy woman and I'm committed to my projects, okay? And I honestly have to say that I can understand the dissatisfaction that a lot of people have in their lives. I fully get it. I get it. I think there's been so much repression in people's lives, and this is one of the reasons why they act out the way that they do, because they do not know how to find satisfaction in a world where everything is manipulated. Their marriages are manipulated. It's tied to their finances. Their children, maybe their children do not have the respect for their parents, as they should, okay? But then again, the children probably resent their parents because the parents are burned out and resentful towards being in the marriage. Therefore, it trickles down to the entire family in it. Whatever the case is, it's like, I understand there's a lot of misery because of people dabbling with the archons, just dabbling with the archons. And now we had this unleashed all of this evil in the world, okay? Personally, like, if, I think, hopefully you don't belong to a religion where they send you a kingdom spouse. I would think that if you belong to a particular church, they would have like church singles nights or some sort of gathering where they can meet and select your own kind of marriage partner, hopefully, you know what I mean? And you can talk to that person and find your own kind of like relationship, okay? Hopefully you don't get into a situation like that, okay? It would be very dark, okay, and very, very sad, and I don't see where anybody can find work-life balance. You'd hate your job because your husband's sitting here monitoring what you're doing at work, and then you come home and you're dealing with, and this is not me bashing men, it's not, okay, because I know a lot of people think, she's sitting here talking about, no, I'm talking about a lot of men would take advantage of that. I am not saying all men. I'm saying, this is what happens, okay? And I'm going to tell you that this is what happened to my sisters, but they were too dumb to do anything about it. They're too dumb to do anything about it. That's it, really. I think that's it. I'm going to wrap it up for Friday night and just kind of enjoy the weekend while I work. It's unfortunate about the library, but it is what it is. I'm not looking forward to having this meeting with the EDD on Monday. I'm not, but I just want to get it over with. And the reason why is because I understand, I dealt with vigilantes. You know what I mean? And vigilantes who were, and I get the intuitive message, something about religion. Now they understand that it was, they have to, you know, acknowledge the fact that I have the right to be non-religious. This is what I'm talking about, okay? The churches have, and I don't know if it was just Rex Laverne's propaganda or have these been going on for many, many, many years, okay? Meaning like, you know, the wrong people working in the wrong professions. You know, I cannot. I have very little patience for these people who work for these government. I have not dealt with anything rude or anything, but I understand how evasive this whole vigilante type thing is, okay? And the minute I have to talk to these people, I dread it because I'm thinking, okay, you know, I always expect to deal with somebody who's unprofessional. I always expect, it's not because they're not being nice or whatever, it's the fact that they feel as though this needs to be a part of their church affiliation. This needs to be discussed. They need to talk to church people to see if they can give me something. No, I paid into it. If I'm entitled to it, I'm entitled to it. It's like, you know, I need to see if she can buy stuff. Yes, I can buy something. You know what I mean? If I paid into it or if I'm deserving of it, I deserve it. You know what I mean? But what it is like you deal with people. I don't know. Why would somebody be jealous of somebody? Let me tell you something. When you are on unemployment, you're constantly making up for the deficits that you've had while you weren't making any money. So it's not like, you know, I'm going to go out and party with that money. I have to pay bills with it. Okay. So, you know, I just get tired of church mentality. I don't like church mentality. Okay. And if I had a company, like I said, because I would be running my company like a fine, well-oiled machine, I wouldn't be dealing with the religious delusion. I wouldn't be dealing with that. Okay. Every customer, to me, I don't care, black, white, Asian, whatever. I don't care what religion you are. Your money is my money. Meaning like I'm going to be open. I'm going to treat every customer and I'm not going to have those sort of issues. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't understand really what Christianity is other than something evil. Because I don't really believe it. I don't see anybody behaving or trying to behave godly. It's always about something wicked. And I have the right to say that because I guess it's true. Anyway, you guys, I'm going to head to back down to the kitchen and doing what I need to do. And I will be back with another video sometime later. Take care.